Before I start, I saw something on our site, and I just thought I would read this just to put it in context. Despite a couple of producer or co-producer credits on films like The Hunger Games, Catching Fire, American Hustle, Her, and Frozen being co-directed by Jennifer Lee, 2013 marked a dismal year for women in behind-the-scenes job on the top 250 grossing movies. A recent survey found that women comprised only 16% of the directors, writers, producers, editors, and cinematographers. And that's actually lower than it was in 1998. And only 6% of the top films last year were directed by women, down from 9%. It's considerably better in the indie world, yay for us, but breaking into the business is tough for anyone. So what are the unique challenges facing women today as they try to crack the cellulite ceiling? We have a great panel here, and to introduce them, I want to bring to the Lynn Henderson, who is the president of an organization that does exactly what this is all about, Women in Film and Television.
Hi, everybody. I want to thank everybody. This is a great crowd for Women in Film and Television's multi-year sponsorship of Perseverance, Women in the Industry. I wanted to just tell you a little bit about Women in Film and Television. We are the Florida chapter of an international organization that is the premier networking association or organization for women and men, actually, in the film and TV, commercial, everything digital industry. So I really encourage you to go on our website. It's womeninfilmfl.org, and check us out, join, network, come to our events. We have great events. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, so we're everywhere. So I really, I just want to put it out there that we're here in Central Florida, and we do great things, and it's no better place to network. And with that, I will now, it's my pleasure to introduce Mylyn Dominguez. She is the program manager of the film production MFA at Full Sail University here in Orlando.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much for the introduction. And I'd like to add that I just heard at breakfast that we have the largest enrollment of men in our Women in Film and Television in the country, which I think is really exciting. And I just think that speaks a lot. When I've had people talk to me about this organization, they just say it's an extraordinary organization for networking, and at the same time, it empowers women in film. So if you haven't joined, go ahead and join that organization. So I'm really excited to be here. Good morning, everyone. This is such, I think, an exciting and important topic. At first, when I was reading through and looking at it, I was sharing this with the panelists earlier this morning. I had this feeling of like, oh, here we go again. We're talking about these dire statistics, and I just kind of felt a little bit down about it. And as I was doing more and more research, I saw some complicated things, some hard things. And also some exciting and inspiring things. And I think the first thing that I really thought, and why I think this panel is so important and why I'm so grateful that you all are here, is that we can't make change if we don't understand where we are. And it's really important for us to dive in and to really look at what is the situation right now, and to not, because what we want to do is say, oh, it's hard, we know that there's not that many women in it, but anyway, I like movies and let's ignore it. What we really have to do is say, what is going on? Why is this going on? Talk about it like we're doing here, and then we can make some, and we'll get into that in the next step. Get into some really amazing things that we can look forward to and to change. So I'm incredibly grateful for this extraordinary group of people that's here, of women that's here right now, and that's going to help us have this dialogue and this conversation. I'm going to list their names to introduce them. So if we can hold the applause till the end, and then I'm going to have each of them talk a little bit about their journey in the film world and how they got to where they are and what it is that they do so that we can have some context about their expertise. So I want to begin. We have Andrea Roa, we have Myra Blaustein, we have Leah Meyerhoff, we have Kim Kailaka, and Deborah McCletchy. So thank you guys for being here. So I guess we should just start on this end if you're okay with that. Just tell us your story and how you got here.
Hi, so I'm Andrea Roa. I'm an independent producer. I'm based in New York, but I did grow up in Miami, Florida. I've produced 3 films to date. The last one was Joe Swanberg's Drinking Buddies. Before that, I made a movie that shot in Florida, which was Laurie Collier's Sunlight Jr., and then I made a small film called Booster a few years back. And I am currently in pre-production on 2 movies, one that will shoot July and one that will shoot in September, both of which are female directors. So.
Cool.
I'm Myra Blaustein. I'm the co-founder and executive director of the Woodstock Film Festival, which was founded in year 2000, based in Woodstock, New York, and the region. I have a background in film. I went to 2 film schools, as a matter of fact. One was in San Francisco, the San Francisco Art Institute, and then the other was in New York City, School of Visual Arts. And I began making films. And then once I moved out of New York City, upstate New York, I began working for an existing film festival there that and began to program that festival. The festival went defunct after I left. I have to put that out. Had nothing to do with me. But then while working at this other festival, I began to understand the merits of a film festival and how inspiring and empowering it is to everyone associated with it, whether it's the filmmakers or the community that attends. So I had this crazy idea that I could do it myself, and so I did, and had no idea what I was getting myself into. And here I am 15 years later and still running it. But while doing the film festival, I'm also doing things on the side. So I'm co-producing a documentary that is to be directed by a woman, and I'm also consulting in a startup company that's a film company that have done a feature film and TV episodes. And I also just wanted to throw in something else because for my work, we use a lot of interns from different schools throughout the Northeast and the country. And if the interns are really motivated and smart and interested, they then become employees of our organization. So as it turned out, one of our interns, who is a young woman, then was hired as my assistant, and now I'm working with her on a script. And then the other intern, who then was turned into my assistant, is going to now be producing it. So I'm going to be working with 2 of my former female assistants who hopefully will make a good film together. And as they developed in their careers, and one is a producer and the other is an actress, writer, musicians, and hopefully more. So, so that's it.
My name is Leah Meyerhoff, and I am a writer-director from New York. And my first feature film is actually playing here in the festival. It played yesterday. It's called I Believe in Unicorns. And all right, and everyone believes. I love it. And it's a female-driven film in many ways. It's a film about a teenage girl. And a lot of women, really talented women, helped collaborate to make the film. Most of my producers were women, and a lot of my crew. I also am a founder of a female film collective in New York called Film Fatales, which is a group of women, writer-directors, feature filmmakers, who meet every month, and we help each other make films. And I think that's a great thing that women in the industry can do to change these statistics, is to help each other. And so it's wonderful to be here today. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kim Kaleka, and I am not a filmmaker. I'm in film distribution. So I'm in the business end of what happens after you've made a film and you want to get it out to the theaters. I landed in that industry in a long and twisty way, and I think that we'll probably get into that afterwards. But so that's my background, and I'm a member of New York and Women in Film and Television, which we mentioned earlier at breakfast. So it's a great organization, and I think that if you can, be a part of something in Florida, it's great. It's a great organization.
Hi, everyone. My name is Deborah McCletchy, and I work for Oscilloscope Laboratories, and we're an independent distributor out of New York City. It was started by Adam Yauch of the Beastie Boys, if all of you know who that is. Yeah, it's a fun company. We're pretty young. We've been around for 5-6 years or so right now. I started making films. I went to film school, started making films, doing music videos, working with friends, doing little independent projects. Shot a film a long time ago that I'm sort of revisiting now about women in the local rock and roll music scene in Madison, Wisconsin. So I'm going back to that footage, and that's been fascinating, actually, to return to a project. But for Oscilloscope, and previous to Oscilloscope, I worked for the Criterion Collection. So I've been doing a lot of home entertainment type stuff, packaging things in a really beautiful way. Our packaging for Oscilloscope DVDs is very elaborate. We pay a lot of attention to it, working very closely with the filmmakers and producers on the film. So when you buy an Oscilloscope DVD, the consumer has like a really great experience of the film, and it's special. So it's not just like watching it on iTunes, which I fully support as well, but I do like the physical product still, and I think it can be really special for audiences and filmmakers. Yeah, we'll get into more, I guess. That's a little bit about me. So
Great,
thanks
thank
for
you.
coming, everyone.
So just jumping right in, you guys obviously are here to, inspire a lot of students, a lot of student filmmakers, but just to kind of all of us to engage in this conversation. And I'm wondering if at first you could share your own experience, if there was any time that you felt like you hit that celluloid ceiling or that you faced sexism in the industry. Jump in. It's okay to talk about. And if not, that's okay too.
It's interesting. I mean, I'm just going to think about it out loud because I don't know about my own work, because my own work had this organic path. But I'm thinking about all the, through the Woodstock Film Festival, we have so many interns. First of all, which is, I'm assuming some of the people in the audience are students who will then hopefully become interns and then work in the industry. And I can't, by the way, emphasize enough how I think beneficial it is to intern in a professional environment, and because then it can lead to so much, it will be very helpful for your career if you do so. I always encourage young people to do that. But among the interns, it seems to me that more of our interns slant to be actually females rather than males for whatever reason, maybe because many of them also are interested in PR or journalism and not only just below the line kind of filmmaking, which some of our interns are interested in, and that maybe slants more towards the male gender. But, I'm still thinking about it as I talk, and I really don't see, honestly, the differences, at least at the young age, in terms of getting ahead. But I suppose that and we all know that once you get into the real work, meaning to be hired or to be able to get your funding as a director, then we all know that it's so much harder for women than for men to actually get their project greenlit, and even so in terms of the budget that they can procure, for men it's just so much easier. But I think that when you start out, it's really, I have not honestly seen the difference, which is, I don't know, maybe surprising. What do you guys think?
Okay, well, I'll add to that. Yeah, so I'm one of the 6%. I think I haven't experienced kind of overt sexism in the industry, but I do think film is kind of an industry of who you know. And since male directors historically have made films, they tend to be the ones who are greenlit to make their next film. So I think it's easier in many ways for male directors to find financing because they're less likely to be a first-time director. And I think from my own personal experience, I was told many times that I would have an easier time raising financing for my film if I made it a male character. There is this perception that audiences don't like to go see films about women, and that young women will go see films about men, but that young men won't go see a film about a woman. And I obviously didn't listen to that advice. It's very important for me to make a film about a female character, and that's why I am a filmmaker in many ways. But I think there are a specific set of challenges that, since female writer-directors often tend to want to make films about female characters, they face those sorts of financing challenges, as well as selling a film as well. A lot of sales companies that we've met with, say things like, I'm not sure how to market this film, it's so girly. And I see that as a total strength and think there are women out there who are hungry to see films reflecting themselves on screen. And I think, we have a Facebook page for our film that has 100,000 fans. And you can actually look at the statistics. You can break it down, and I think 75% of them are young women. And you see, I just saw Divergent last night at the Regal Hollywood, and it was a fantastic audience. So I think that that's a misconception, that audiences don't want to see films about female characters, and hopefully it's starting to change.
I think that's a really, really good point, especially because when we see sometimes some of the male directors create female characters, we either have the dichotomy of like a damsel in distress, someone who's kind of behind the scenes to look good, or we have the badass female, like the one that essentially acts like a man. Right. So I think that like kind of subtle innuendo of all the other ways that one can be female, all that other range, if women aren't participating in the storytelling, we're going to have a lot less chance of getting to see those interesting characters like the ones that you're creating, and that you kind of said, I don't care if you're telling me that nobody's interested. I believe there are people because I'm interested and I'm a person. So therefore, there's probably other people like me who are interested. Yeah. Sometimes we have to say these things on panels just to make it clear. So that's great. So that I think that's my next question that I'll kind of throw out to you. How do we encourage the next generation of filmmakers to be brave and fearless as they dive into creating these characters that maybe people are telling them people don't want to see? Or what kinds of characters? How do you think we can do that?
Well, I'll say just do it.
Yeah.
Just make it happen. Don't think too much about it. Get over any kind of fear that you might have about trying to do anything, really. I mean, a film is a huge undertaking, and it is scary, and you have to raise resources and finances, but just do it. Like, don't allow yourself to be compromised. Don't allow yourself to say no to yourself. And find friends, find collaborators. A lot of these women, we all have great female friends and great male friends in the industry who we've worked with, and cultivate those relationships, cultivate those collaborations. I think it's easy to say just do it, but it's also really just like you have to find the confidence and the courage to just take the leap, because otherwise you won't do it. So.
Well, as an extension also to what Leah said, because she wrote and directed a film that had a lot to do with her own life. It was a subject that she was very familiar with. And this is an advice that is often given specifically to screenwriters and also directors, is write about what you know, write about your own life. So if you're a woman, what you know, by and large, would be yourself and your own experiences. So just don't think about, really, what Leah just said, I think, is can be used as an advice. And yes, we are persons, and we are actually 51% of the population, so we're the majority, honestly. Especially if you're talking about your first project, the best advice is really to do something borrowed from your own experience, because you will be most passionate about it. You will know it the best. It will have a very authentic and genuine sense to it. And with all of those ingredients in hand, you will be able to then bring on board more and more people, because it will be genuine and they will respond to that. And by people, I mean your cast and crew and support system. They would be compelled to work with you because they will sense your passion and your understanding, and the fact that you really know what you're doing here, because this is your story, or at least something that means a lot to you and you're familiar with. And once you have that, you can see how infectious it actually can be, because if something is genuine and if something is driven by passion, it tends to speak to people. It tends to attract them. So go with your gut, go with your own feeling, and believe in yourself, because if you don't, who will? You have to believe in yourself, and then you'll gather your support system and hopefully be successful.
And what Deborah said is fantastic as well, which is to find collaborators. I think being a filmmaker can be a really lonely experience in many ways. You're writing by yourself, or you're editing by yourself, and other than that month of production, you really are in it alone. And so if you can surround yourself with like-minded people, it goes a long way. And so for the film students in the audience, you know, your classmates really will be the ones supporting you throughout your career. And the film collective that we have in New York, we just started a chapter in Los Angeles as well. It'd be great to get one here in Florida. Just filmmakers getting together and helping share resources and advice, and physically helping each other with production, I think is the best way to just do it. Is you don't have to do it alone. You can do it together. So.
On the flip side of things, women tend to be the ones who make the decision what movie you're going to see. So it's true. And so if women continue to support films driven by women, we're going to see a switch, I think, and you know, who has the lead roles in films, and that I know that that's something that needs to be changed. I know that there are some really, you know, high-powered, wonderful actresses out there who speak about how they can't find meaty, good roles. And I think they can't find them not because they're not written. They are. They're just at the bottom of the pile of the films that are being greenlit. And that is something that I think you can also put it in your own hands to change just as a film goer. Buy the tickets.
I'm wondering if any of you have thought about doing, I just read a book called The Aviator's Wife, about Lindbergh's wife. And it was a great book, and it'd be a great movie for one of you to do.
Great idea.
He also wrote a book, too.
We should
It's very interesting. And it's about a woman.
Can I mention that there is a spotlight, or a growing spotlight, on women filmmakers today, and we are fortunate to have a number of companies that have sprung up recently whose mission is specifically to support women filmmakers. Tangerine Entertainment out of New York City is one, and Game Changer is another. Game Changer has actually a good budget. If any of you is looking to get funded, look up Game Changer. Of course, they're inundated by applications, which tells you how many people, how many female filmmakers are looking to get their project funded. A ton of them. But the opportunities to get the support and opportunities to get the funding is now larger than ever, especially in the independent universe. So, and I suspect that is something that is going to just continuously grow, because, well, as we know, one thing just always leads to another, and everything has its own snowball effect. Plus, there is just look at Obama now, who's trying to get equal salaries for women. this is something that's in the news. This is something that people are paying attention to now. I'm talking about. So seize that moment and make your voice heard and be part of this whole action. And pretty soon we'll be the majority. Why not?
Do you have something that you want to add?
No, Mary, actually.
All right, I love that. I mean, I love that there's all these programs going on, and I've been reading about a lot of them. But they still, we need to do them. We need to keep having them. They still feel, a little bit like a drop in the bucket. So I'm just trying to figure out why these numbers are still so low. Why only 6% of the top films? I'm happy to see that it's happening more in the independent film industry, but the bottom line is, when our girls are watching TV, most of the characters that they're seeing are, in these supporting roles. I have statistics here, but it's like in family films, like it's 14 men to 1 woman that you'll see in like a STEM field, and 5 to 1 in prime time. So these and STEM is science, technology, engineering, and math. So these are major things that are influencing our people, our children, or who we are becoming, right? Life is art, art is life, and it's this constant going back and forth. So I want us to really dig in and try to figure out why is this happening. I'm not saying that we're necessarily going to come up with a solution this moment, but really, why, we have so many women that are writers. They're writing, they're books, tons of books by women. That's an art form. They're speaking their voice. And yet, as filmmakers, a visual art form, we're not seeing that. So I'm trying to figure out what are the barriers, what are the boundaries, how can we break those down, and how can we then, really look at the next thing. And one thing, and I'll just throw this out there as a theory, because I've just been trying to think about this and process it for my own students in my program, and just trying to kind of inspire and reach out to people. Women so much have seen themselves as like the object in advertisement, on TV, that maybe we've forgotten how to become like the subject, like we've forgotten how to look and see outside, because so much has been looking at us that we're almost only sure how to look at ourselves. Like you mentioned, we only even know how to maybe tell stories about ourselves because we're always kind of being objectified, the object in many of the cases. So maybe to pull back that dichotomy and say, okay, well then how is it that I'm able to pull back and start looking and start being allowed to share my voice in a way, as the subject, from a subjective point of view, as a filmmaker. So any thoughts on that? It's kind of a big...
Well, there's... Sorry, I mean, pick up on what I'm saying now, because what I'm about to say is just a small part of it. And actually, I was thinking about it as I was listening to you, and just think about the constitution of a film crew. And I'm not talking now about the audience. I'm talking about when you direct a film. And you think about your grips and your lightings and your PA, and so many of the crew is male. And then you think about the person in a leadership position. It seems to me that just because of that dichotomy, it's easier, or it has been easier for many years, for those who are below the line to sort of take direction from their male counterpart rather than a female. So it seems that the natural progression of just who is going to be in what position within the filmmaking process would be that it would be for a male, because the director is the top of the pyramid. And it's interesting because a lot of the producers are actually women, but as we all know, in terms of the directors, majority has been male. And I think the crew structure has a lot to do with that. So that's one thing. But then the other thing, of course, there's so many different elements to it. And honestly, it's not just in the film business. It's in so many of the other industries in our lives, not just film and entertainment. when it comes to specifically that kind of a work that depends so much on a team, because you're talking about literature, it's something that you do in the privacy of your home, and then you just have to get a publisher. That's a whole different story than having to work with a large team and counting on that. And anyways, but in terms of the audience and how to get people to buy into female-driven stories, which then can potentially be made by women filmmakers, that is something that I guess, any of you want to jump into that and explore that?
I don't think women can only tell women stories, right? I mean, I feel like women can tell any stories in the same way that men have been able to tell stories about mice and, all sorts of different kinds of characters. So, I think a really positive example that we saw recently was Gravity. We saw an extraordinary film made by a man that tells this incredible story about a woman who is a scientist and brilliant, and I think she has her clothes on like most of the movie, which I think is pretty cool. And it's all about how she's able to like work through it. And so I think that's really inspiring. But what I'm hearing you say is that we need to maybe encourage more women, like you said, working together, finding that collaboration, that teamwork. So if they can figure out ways to not only take their art that they can do privately at home alone, but to start expanding that, to have leadership roles amongst other people, but also to collaborate and help each other. Because even with the producers, still the statistics are we only have 16% of directors, writers, producers, and editors in the whole film business are female.
I just want to, I have the feeling that if you think about it rather from the top up, instead of that, think about it from the bottom up. And if you populate your crew more and more with women, those women will climb up to the top. So think about, it's building blocks.
That's a great point.
I definitely agree with that. And I came up through physical production, so I was working as a PA and had the privilege to work with really amazing female producers. And as I came up through physical production, I've worked with first ADs who are women, DPs who are women who are becoming directors. There's always, I was doing this in New York, so I felt really privileged to have worked with so many great women on a crew level. Gaffers, everybody. I think that it's important to hire, and as a producer now, I don't try to sway one way or the other, but there's a real acknowledgement that like there are incredibly talented female collaborators out there, and now working with more female directors, even working with male directors, they're excited to work with female DPs, they're excited to work with female gaffers. I think even though the statistics have stayed the same, and Deborah made a really good point at brunch that even though the number has stayed the same, there are more movies being made in total. So I think that that 16% has held, but we're making more movies as a whole, so there are more women making movies and more women collaborating. And I think, like Leah does in New York and now in LA, bringing those collaborators together, introducing them and allowing them to work. I think it becomes less of like, oh, we have a female DP. We have a great DP, is what it becomes about. So I just, starting from the bottom is a really good place. And for me, who started as a PA, seeing women in those positions was inspiring and really just encouraged me. There was no, that's why I had a hard time answering that question. There was no real ceiling. I saw women doing this, and more women are doing it. So I think, hiring them and encouraging them is really helpful.
I love that, and I think you're totally right. And in that vein, I think sometimes I've had students come to me, and I guess, it's kind of skewed because the people we have here are ones that have been successful in filmmaking. So you guys are the 6%, right? And there's all this like 94% that are maybe there and maybe elsewhere that'll be listening to this online or wherever it is that they'll be listening to. And I kind of want us to try to reach out to them and speak to them, because many of them, students, they come and they say, well, I feel nervous because I don't know the language or it's too technical. And, if I'm with a big group of guys and there's only, like you said, one or two women and they start asking me technical questions, it freaks me out. And then, that's something that can shut them down. And you broke through that. So I feel like you really have a great voice to be able to share. Did you ever face moments like that? Did you not, share about how you did that?
Yeah, you fake it. But I think even as like a young male crew member, you would try to fake it, and I think women are actually sometimes better at that. And I don't know, for me, even as in production, I came up through physical. I was a PA, I was an AD, I was a production manager, and then started producing. So, I was encouraged by other women, and I do that now. I encourage all the PAs to be awesome. I love when the female PAs work harder or like drive the trucks for me. It's like I encourage everyone to do everything. And I think it's just like, it's great. And I love seeing that my crew is half women when I'm working, and it often is, and especially in independent film. And in New York, there are a lot of women doing a lot of great things. So for me as a producer, I can encourage all the, like Myra said, all the young interns to do whatever job they want on the set. And like the technicality and the language, everyone is going to have a hard time with that on your first job, and you learn really quickly. And I think if you're open to it, all the crew members will be really encouraging, and I think it's rare now to like find a crew member, I don't know, there's some like the older dudes who are still a little crotchety, but they're just like that in general. So I think just entering and working really hard and being open to it, you'll work your way up and you'll find your place. And I think you'll find a lot of encouragement from women and men. So.
Yeah, I want to add to that also, because you don't have to be in New York or LA to be working in this industry also. I went to school at UW-Madison in Wisconsin. One of my first production jobs out of that was being a PA on I Love Trouble with Julia Roberts and Nick Nolte. I'm dating myself. But, find the opportunities wherever you are locally, too. Films come into town. People are doing independent work. You can work on commercials. You can learn a lot on smaller productions. And you can learn a lot by grabbing a camera and just going out and making something with friends and doing it really down and dirty and on the cheap and just trying to dive in and learn as much as you possibly can, hands-on, just doing it in a really small way, too. So. Yeah. I encourage girls and women to do that, like get into production as early as you can. If you're a teenager, join like a teen production group if there's one at your school. At college, take every opportunity there is to learn whatever aspect of the industry is that you want to learn, and just get your hands dirty as early as possible.
I love it. I think that's an excellent point too, which is now kind of the barrier to entry is much lower. We do have the big cameras, but we also have so many other cameras that are easily affordable. And what I'm most excited about that, I think we talked about this a little bit before too, is just seeing all of the kids that, playing with iPhones and making movies and editing and doing all these kinds of things, because I think we're going to be able to get a much broader, more diverse range of stories coming through soon. And personally, I'm excited to see those. So I'd love to hear you guys talk more about independent film.
Well, actually, do you mind if I say something totally different for a second? Because I was just thinking about something. Sorry. Well, there's another element to success, and that is publicity. So I don't know if there's anybody in this room, for instance, who is a journalist or publicist or any. Okay, good. Just one. Another thing that can be done to encourage anybody's work is by giving them publicity, by spotlighting their work. And so any write-ups, journalism, interviews, photos, anything that can be done on specifically women filmmakers or women who work in the film industry any which way possible, brings that more up to the spotlight, lets people know about it. So I think that predominantly what we read about, what we hear about on television, online, any which way, is slanted more towards works that involved male filmmakers. But if we give more airwaves, if we give more spotlight, ink, to the work by women filmmakers, it creates the perception that they're out there working, successful, and that encourages it. Because so much of success has a lot to do with perception. So if you start also from that point of view, you'll see that you'll actually elevate everyone's potential. So it's something to think about at least.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways we can be supporting each other. You know, for some people it will be actually making films. For some people it will be writing strong female characters and diverse female characters and broad range of female characters. But like you said, for others it will just be showing up to the movie theater, and for others it will be marketing and getting the word out and just being here. And I didn't mention it before, but I am going to have a half an hour for questions coming up soon. So have your questions and please hold them, because we will have you guys, we'll try to get to all of those. So any other thoughts that you guys have on just kind of independent filmmaking and why it is? Well, I mean, I think it's kind of obvious why it is that's been a place that women have done better, but a little bit more details on thoughts on how it is that women can continue to forge in that territory, and the more they do. I mean, I loved your point about the fact that there's a lot more films being made, therefore that percentage, it represents a way larger number of people, which is, that's awesome. And the more the better, and the more the independent films are out there and they're successful, the more they'll reach more of the mainstream. So
well, and to Deborah's point about going out and shooting, I think now you can do it cheaper. You know, you can make a movie. So I think people are really inspired to do that at really low budgets, which is really exciting. You're seeing some really incredible films coming out for really small budgets, and like cameras are easily accessible, and you can shoot with 70s, and you can shoot with whatever. So I think that also will encourage more women to just, like Deborah said, grab a camera, go shoot a movie, So that's exciting that's happening right now.
yeah.
The world of film is actually very diverse and complex. There's directors, screenwriters, producers, publicists, reporters, distributors, entertainment lawyers, producers, reps. I mean, there's just so many different parts of the film world that you could be a part of and really grow in and feel very fulfilled and you're making a difference. So do you guys want to talk a little bit about that side of the spectrum, which is very different?
Well, I think that's why the first thing that came to my mind was revenue. It's unfortunate, but that's where I am in this industry. I need to know that the bottom line is good. So when you have a film that features women, whether behind the scenes or in front of the scenes, either way, it's going to stay in movie theaters because it's making money. And so getting out there and telling your friends to go see this movie because it's great, that's the way you keep it going. That's the way you take an independent film and you build it. And it goes from being in, 3 movie theaters up to thousands. It's just what I do on my side of things. So that's why making that decision to see a film that stars a woman, has a woman director, whatever, and if the publicity is great about it, that helps too, because it does reach so many people. But everybody reaches people. So every little bit that you can do helps us grow in the industry.
Yeah, revenue is key, unfortunately, in many ways. But there are distributors, and I think that we're one of them, that do take risks on certain films, and we'll pick up a film that we'll know it's going to be kind of difficult. But we take the chance on it because we really believe in it, and we believe in the filmmakers, and we believe in the subject matter, and we just believe it should be seen. So there are a couple of examples of that. Hannah Fidel, actually, a teacher, was a feature that she made. That we picked up, and it had a little bit of a life at the box office, but it's done incredibly well online. So if a film doesn't necessarily have a huge presence at the box office, there will be some other avenues for it. So that's one thing to keep in mind with the whole digital landscape and the video on demand landscape. And there are other ways for people to see movies. I prefer to see them with an audience in many ways, but I'm happy that they go elsewhere too. So they'll get an audience and they'll get seen. So I think in distribution there are people that still take risks with certain films. So I guess that would be my flip side to the revenue model too.
Right.
Oh, sorry.
And that's exactly it. When you're distributing independent film, I think it is about taking risks, and it's about looking at the art of the film, because that's what we cherish. But at the same time, it only grows because of you. It does grow in other aspects outside of the theater, and that's something that we've had to explore and develop to get audiences able to see a lot of these independent film. So to your point, yeah, we've expanded the horizons on how you see a movie.
I was just going to say I think that's incredibly heartening and speaks to a couple of the points that have just been stated, which is that it's really important to have different visions and women in all different aspects of filmmaking, because in all different aspects you're going to be able to have a touch point and an influence that's incredibly powerful. And in your case, being able to take when you say something like, we get to take a chance on movies that we believe in, but if the person making those decisions believes only a certain thing, you're only going to see those movies. So really important to have that different voice, and they're saying, I believe in this, and therefore it's more likely to be, a movie that now will represent women and as well as men, which I think is incredibly powerful.
I also, just talking to the distributors, I also think that the way that we're watching movies is changing so dramatically. And if you look at a movie's box office success, it's hard to really tell how well that movie's done, because VOD is such a huge portion now. So a movie could be incredibly successful on VOD and have had a very short run on box office. So if you're looking at those numbers, you're thinking, wow, this woman's movie or this person's movie hasn't done that well. But we're still not in a place where we have that information yet, and we haven't fully figured out how we're doing that. So I think that there's also that opportunity. What's happening with the online market will also change things dramatically, and you'll be able to track how films are doing a little bit more. So.
I think that's a great point in the international market as well. I think that it has such a longer life now, and you have to really be able to wait a little bit so you can see the full life of the movie and how much money it actually makes. We don't know kind of from the beginning, which I think is extremely exciting for all independent filmmakers, because you can make money. I mean, you really can. You can make something, and it has all sorts of different ways that it can reach out to people. So does anyone have questions from the audience? Yay!
Oh, can I just throw something out there before we... There's another opportunity these days to get started and get noticed that I find to be very exciting, and that you can do that so independently with any kind of a budget, from a small budget to a large budget, and that's the content for the web, and specifically webisodes. I know so many very talented writers, directors, producers, filmmakers, actors, and so on, who have gotten that start recently in the past couple of years online with specifically like 20 minutes to 30 minutes, half-hour webisodes, and they would do a series with budgets ranging from 20,000 to 200,000 or so. And the attention that those people have received is gigantic, actually. I mean, they got press anywhere from Wall Street to New York Times to trade magazines to Huffington Post to television, invited to the mayor's office. I mean, like really strong attention. And now all of a sudden they're a hot commodity and they get offers. So, and that's something that's relatively speaking very accessible. So that's something to think about as you go into the world and want to start making your mark. But first of all, just trying things on your own. It's a very interesting field to get into.
Great, thank you.
The success about women in Hollywood were pretty grim. Are women filmmakers, have they just given up trying to change Hollywood and moved into independent film instead?
I think that's a great question. Did everyone hear that? Okay, so the question he asked is that, after hearing all these kind of grim statistics, have women just kind of given up working with the standard Hollywood system and basically just gone to independent film?
I don't think so.
I don't either.
No, I don't think women have given up on Hollywood at all. I think there are a lot of very talented, capable women that are working in Hollywood that want to advance to that director level. I don't know, we're all sort of East Coast in a lot of ways, so I can't speak really directly to Hollywood, except to just say, like, from what I know and from what I read and from friends in the industry talking, like, I don't think anyone is giving up on Hollywood. And I feel like the stats, like, as we were talking at brunch, like, there are more people in general making films, so those stats are a little misleading in some ways. I also feel like people shouldn't get too bogged down by finding the reason why they are so low in some ways too, or don't get intimidated by that in some ways, I guess. Yeah, I still just go back to my point of, like, there are women out there who want to be doing these films and just go and do it.
And then you have somebody like Catherine Hardwicke, who did the Twilight.
Yeah.
So you
And
have
Bigelow.
some women in Hollywood who makes among the most mega $1 million success stories. So I think that's actually very encouraging for women working in a Hollywood.
And I think for a lot of filmmakers, women and men, independent film is a place to start, and now you can make movies, and, I think everybody would like to make bigger budgets, and that's the goal, you're working your way up. And I think if what you're making is good, people will notice.
But I mean, I think it's a really good point, and I think it's a place where people have to continue to push and work really hard. And I think that, it has to be not just 50% of the population, women, saying, we want women films. It has to be the other 50% saying, we demand that the films we see in Hollywood and independent films represent our entire society, because that's just appropriate. There's lots of complex relationships, and we'd like to know them all, and we don't kind of want to see our world only being skewed in one particular way. I did work in Hollywood for a while, and it's a very sexist place still. That's just the bottom line. I worked, in all different aspects, and I read a lot about this too, and it was reminding me, it was like why I wasn't there anymore. But it definitely, you get asked out on a lot of dates if you're trying to do regular work. That's kind of how it goes. So I think that it's shifted a lot in a lot of the other industries, and it hasn't shifted in that same way in the film industry. And I think as a community and as a culture, we need to demand that it changes, because I think it's really challenging if you're in Hollywood trying to make it, working in a production company or in a talent agency or wherever you are, and this kind of stuff is happening. It's pretty hard to see yourself in a leading directorial role of command, So, and of course, simultaneously, if this is what we're watching, because it's what's on TV and what's in the films as content, it's this self-perpetuating cycle. So I think that your question is incredibly valid. We have to keep making independent films because it's a great entryway. Love webisodes, love that we have all these new ways and new technology that we can reach out. But we really can't give up on reaching the big mass audiences as well. And I'm heartened by things like Divergent and all. I mean, this is awesome, because this is what what my 11-year-old is seeing, and this is kind of bringing to the surface this idea of, like, complex female characters that don't fit the stereotype. So and it has, I'll keep answering questions, but it has really big ramifications. I just saw this TED Talk, this PhD doctor was coming back on all of the statistics that girls face as a result of seeing all of these negative things. Higher levels of shame, depression, suicide, and their voices aren't being heard. So, I mean, while I'm so thrilled for us to look at the positive side of things, and I really believe there's a lot of positive, I just think it's important that we not try to, say everything's okay, it's fine. I think it's really important that we try to look into it, because there's some major consequences. So to me, that's incredibly inspiring for all female filmmakers. You know, make your movies that make a difference. So I think there was a question. Oh look, lots of questions! Yay! All right, so she had a question from before.
I'm making an announcement to local people about supporting things that I happen to have noticed that Lou Gardens is having on the 30th independent short films of and by women. I do not know who organized it. I don't know if it's anybody associated with this, but you go sit outside, you watch movies, and you can see a whole bunch of small, short films, and I'll find out what the story is. But you're talking about...
Thank you.
I'm not doing any Facebooking or anything, but I'm making a publicity comment right now.
You did
to
your
all of this
part. Good
crowd.
job. Thank you.
The event is called LunaFest, and it will be April 30th, Lou Gardens, and it benefits the Breast Cancer Fund. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I don't know where the mic is right now. Okay, over there. Sorry.
Hi, I would have just two questions, real quick. Speaking to funding, are there any special women or suggestions about product integration as it relates to funding? And also, is there any special protocol as far as submitting to distributors? What are they looking for? What is our best chance to get seen?
I think that's a great question because women have such good buying power that it feels like an extraordinary opportunity for products to be placed in these kinds of movies.
Well, I can't, I don't know about the product placement in the films themselves, but I can say, you know, there's basically a couple of avenues to go through to get your film to a distributor, and one of the best is film festivals. We scour them. We have people who go to every film festival across the country or internationally even, and get films that way. You know, if you have a sales agent or whatever, and you get it through to us that way, that's one thing. But in general, your best bet is film festivals. Do you have anything?
Yeah, no, I would just say that's, yeah, we scour film festivals also, internationally and domestically. We have primary acquisitions people, but oftentimes like a bigger team of us will go and just do coverage and see as much as possible. So film festivals are one of the best ways. A sales agent, if you happen to get your film attached to a sales agent, we get films that way as well. Sometimes other filmmakers will tell us about another film, or another distributor has passed on something, but it might be good for us. So I think there's a lot of just talk in general in the industry sometimes too. So, but yeah, festivals for sure.
I'll let him decide since he has the microphone.
I'd be curious to hear from each member of the panel, what are some specific inspirations? Like who specifically has inspired you to pursue this?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. Go ahead,
I think that's a fantastic question. When I was just starting to make this feature film, and I was still writing the script for I Believe in Unicorns, I reached out to a lot of filmmakers who inspired me, including Kimberly Pierce, who made Boys Don't Cry, and Allison Anders, and you know, the women who'd come before me, and I actually called them up and asked them for advice, and they were so generous and giving. Allison ended up becoming an executive producer on my film. Kim Pierce is now a member of our collective, as is Catherine Hardwick. Women who have made films are so giving towards women trying to make films that I think one of the best things that you can do as a filmmaker when you're just starting out is to get advice from those who've come before you. And I am inspired by all of the women in my community now making films. There's a beautiful film called It Felt Like Love by Eliza Hittman, which is in theaters now. Hannah Beth King, who worked on my film and is a local, is about to make her first feature film called Dirt Roads, shooting here in Florida. Oh, nice. Amy Simetz, who has a small role in my film, shot here in Florida, a film called Sun Don't Shine, which you can find on Netflix. I could go on and on. I'll just plug our website, which is filmfatalsnyc.com. We have a list of dozens of women and their films, and you can check out their work. And so in terms of supporting films about women and by women, something you can easily do is watch their films online on iTunes and on Netflix and change those financial statistics so that distributors do pick up more films by and about women.
Can anyone join that group? How
The
does it
group
work?
is open now to women in New York and Los Angeles who have written or directed a feature film, either narrative or documentary. But we are trying to inspire other filmmakers in other cities to start their own chapters. So if you're a filmmaker out there or watching online who's interested, you can email us. You can find all the information on that website.
Did anyone else want to do their inspiration? It was a good question.
I don't know if I have an inspiration for making films, but my local art house cinema I went to as a teenager, and that's where I fell in love with movies. So places like the Enzian, for instance, and other sort of smaller local art house theaters, if they're in your towns across the country, go to them, please. Keep them alive, because it was an inspiration to me. I saw Double Life of Veronique, if anyone knows that film, when I was very young. Yeah, and talk about an interesting, complicated female character. Veronique was one. But yeah, that's what inspired me to get into this industry in the first place. So.
I share that with you a little bit, Deborah. Even though I grew up in the land far away, but I went to my local Cinematheque daily. And that was my absolute inspiration and reason for falling in love in film. But in terms of getting into film festivals, that's years later, and I was living in upstate New York then, and I actually had to make a film because of an incident in my life, and I found a local producer who helped me make it, and then she was hired to run a local film festival, and she brought me then on board to program that film festival. That producer name is Denise Cassell. She's been running the Hamptons Film Festival for many years. The Hamptons actually was a little bit of a competitor of the Woodstock Film Festival. But Denise Cassell, who really gave me, I don't know if she was my inspiration necessarily as much as she gave me a chance. You know, she gave me a start because she helped me produce the film, and then she hired me to work on a festival that she just began to run. And then she moved on and to work for the Hamptons, and then I moved on to start the Woodstock Film Festival, and we kind of butted heads. But to this day, we have the highest respect for each other and love and support for each other. So she was actually a major part of my, I guess, career.
Any other questions?
Right here. My question is, after 80 years, the Academy of Motion Pictures and Arts decided to give the Academy Award for Best Director to Catherine Bigelow back in 2010. Mm-hmm. I wanted to get your guys' opinion on that and what happened.
It was good. It was great.
I wanted to know how each of you felt about, you know, basically that portion of the Oscars feeling a bit gender biased.
It was very interesting because she was up against her ex-husband.
Yeah.
And of course, I think a lot of us were very happy that that she won, and deservedly so. I thought it was against Avatar. Yeah, that was an interesting, and it was, I mean, it could have been a turning point at the life of the Academy then, because I believe she was the first female director that won Best Director in an Oscar. Has that repeated itself? Okay, it will.
Yeah. It will.
Hi, I'd like to thank you all for the excellent advice and follow it immediately by inviting you all to come to a film tonight at 7 at the festival over at the Regal, which was produced, shot, animated, scored, and production designed by women, even though we had a male writer-director. And he actually made a short piece while we were doing our Kickstarter campaign called Army of Women. He called all of us and interviewed us on the phone about why we got involved with the project. And I think it's a really nice little insight in 2 or 3 minutes into women at various stages of their careers and what their motivations were for being involved. So the film is Finding Neighbors, 7 at the Regal. And there's not that much press opportunity for the behind-the-scenes women, especially in independent film. As you started to speak about at one point, rightly so, the press is interested in the stars or the writer-directors. So it is really important to use social media and to just spread the word on a very grassroots level that there are many, many places for women in filmmaking, and there are tons of them out there, and they're excellent at their jobs. So thank you for acknowledging that.
Thank you for telling us about that. That's exciting. I think that's another great point and opportunity for someone to create a platform through which we could see people behind the scenes that are involved in films that are women. I think I see a website. Anyway, anyone else? Any other questions?
You mentioned the importance of PR, marketing, and journalism. How do those of us who work in, the news industry and in public relations help filmmakers and writers understand the importance of getting the word out about the product? Because what I run into is I have a good product, people are going to watch it. You have great content out there on YouTube, Vimeo, but nobody knows it's there. So how would you recommend approaching other filmmakers on the importance of marketing and public relations?
Well, first of all, I am constantly surprised how today still filmmakers don't build into their budget their publicity, PR, and marketing. That is such a huge part of making a film. Getting it out there is, without that, you almost haven't done anything. You just went through the process, but you didn't really complete it. So making sure that the filmmakers understand that marketing and publicity is a crucial part of their budget, and not a small one at that, is something that ultimately is going to be good for them and everybody else. And then on the flip side, for those who are interested in getting the word out, reporting about films and film activities, or writing film criticism, just do it. There are so many avenues now to get your communication broadcast into the world, thanks to the advent of the internet. Blogs, everybody's blogging now. Of course, I don't know, does anybody, but then on the other hand, does anybody still read long form with Twitter and things like, and Vine and every social media outlet that you can use is something that is probably best practiced as much as possible. But generally speaking, talking about film, talking about filmmakers, whether it's online, in print, on the radio, on television, or any other, or in visual form such as Vine and Instagram, etc., is a huge part of those particular products, as well as the life of the filmmakers. And of course, it's great for the audience. Hopefully that answered your question.
Well, to add to that, I think what's really been helpful is to spotlight jobs that are not typical. I think you expose a whole group of people to what a grip is and things like that. I just don't think that a lot of people know what it is, and a lot of women don't aspire to be one of these jobs because they don't know what they are. So I think if you were to spotlight a woman in a position That's sort of one of those below the line ones, but unexpected, not, maybe not costume design or the makeup artist, although those are fantastic jobs as well, but to highlight women who are doing something that stereotypically would have been a man's job in the past.
That's a great idea. Yeah. I think that's
I'll just briefly add to that to say one of the women in my film collective, her name is Danielle Lurie. She's a filmmaker as well as a writer, and she's doing a series right now for Filmmaker magazine about women below the line crew. She did a series on Sundance and South by Southwest, so you can also check that out online.
That's exciting. I can't wait to see that. That's I think such an amazing idea and something that I'm going to incorporate in our film school so that they'll be able to see it. Any other questions? Okay.
My name is Decorian Pound, and I was wondering, like with the success of movies like Hunger Games, Divergent, and Twilight, I was wondering why hasn't it become something for the females to like basically follow, like to open that floodgate of writing the book first and getting that well known, and then coming out with the idea of pitching it to the filmmakers and coming up with the idea of telling them that they should be the director of that film, and watch how that just blooms. I think that will work out great. I was wondering your opinions on it, your take on it.
I don't know that I'm qualified to answer that, but I do know, Twilight was directed by a woman, by Catherine Hardwicke, although she was not hired again for the sequels, unfortunately. But I think Hollywood making films that have female lead characters hopefully will trickle down into there being more people with financing films, not just directed by women, but starring women, both in Hollywood and in the independent world. But I don't know the answer as to why it hasn't happened yet.
I think it's a great point, and I think that more and more is happening. What you're saying is exactly what people are doing. They're figuring out, all right, well, this is a means that I can get in. If I can control if I create good material and then can control the material, then potentially I'll be able to influence what happens with it. So I think that is. I think that's a great suggestion, and I do believe that is a way that a lot of women are going. But I also like the suggestion of making sure lots of girls and women know all about different roles, and also just to, like we've been talking about before, just kind of how to enhance their creative and leadership skills so that they can be inside of, and feel comfortable in those roles. And I think that all of those girls that have been watching those movies that you just listed are going to be the ones making the movies. I mean, those are the ones that will be coming up there. To them, they won't even think that there was a problem at all. So they'll make them, and I think, to me, that's really exciting. We're going to get to see that. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And in colleges and everywhere. Yeah, it's happening.
I just have a comment question. It was fresh press from Andrea and Myra and him, because most of the time in forums, all we talk about art and technology, we miss the business side of it. I think a filmmaker should really understand the business aspect. The statistics is misleading because you're only looking at director and actors. If you remember in 1980s, Sherry Lansing was the CEO of a big mega studio. And there are a lot of VPs and high-level positions who are held by women. And I don't know why they don't choose a woman-related movie at all. And also, Kim brought a very good issue that budget is fine, but actually you need to budget for marketing and promotion. You could have the best product in the world, but if you don't have marketing and promotion, you're done. And same thing with the corporate world. There's a glass ceiling for many years, and now women are CEOs and chairmen of the boards and stuff like that in industry. So you could emulate that in film industry also, So what I like to ask from the panel is, from the business point of view, who was your ideal woman in a top position above the producer?
Above the producer? Sherry Lansing. There's not too many to speak of that preceded us. I think it's all happening now, so I'm hoping it'll be me. Yeah.
Wow. So what I love about what you just said is I was about to piggyback on something that he said, which is about how important self-promotion is. And, there's all these studies about how women don't self-promote as much as men do. Like, we're like, oh, I'm not sure if I can talk on that. I love that you just did that. That was perfect. So, yes, self-promote. You have to self-promote, and you have to have marketing and promotion in your budget, and keep inspiring. You guys are inspiring the next generation. So, yes.
Hi.
Hi.
It's actually a great follow-up to the question that was just asked. There was something that happened in March that Anne Sweeney, she's been the head of entertainment television for Disney for 18 years. She was one of the candidates to actually succeed Bob when he retires in 2016. She was arguably the female in a top position in the television industry, like as a whole. And in March, she announced that she's actually gonna step down from that position next year and become a director. Many thought that was very harmful for up-and-coming females. I'm gonna quote TheRep.com. She said they're like, it's like she's saying no thanks. She would rather not run a part of Disney Empire. She just wants to direct. That decision, personal as it is a blow to larger hopes for women's leadership. This is TheRep.com. Do you guys think, it doesn't matter, she's a human being, she doesn't want to lead anymore, she's been doing it for 18 years and she just wants to direct now? Do you think that's harmful, or do you think it's actually helpful? What is your view on that?
Great question.
I think that's this was her personal decision, so who are we to say anything about it? I mean, she has been doing an amazing job for so many years. If she decided she needed a change for who knows what reason, it's her right to do so. She's not, there are quite a few women in the executive chair within the film world. Fox Searchlight and being one of them, and Universal, yes, and I'm sure there are more that I just can't think of. Granted, I'm thinking now about, let's say, the studio system and the mid-sized distribution companies and the top ones. Having a company such as Fox Searchlight, which is arguably one of the best distribution companies, bar IFC and Oscilloscope, of course. They're really great, and to have that been run, co-run by a woman, I think it's really reassuring to somebody like me. If I wanted to follow in Kim's footsteps, I would say that I would love to be the head of a company that and develop. Honestly, I'm more interested in developing than actually releasing. But that universe of companies such as Fox Searchlight, or when we used to have Focus, that doesn't really exist anymore, but they would produce a lot of their own original material and then also release it nationally, internationally. They did not have a woman in the helm, but those kind of companies are really great companies to have around, and hopefully there will be more Focus Features companies again in our world, and they could and should be run by women. Maybe I'll be one of them.
I think the important question, or the thought there is that she had a choice. Yeah. That's awesome. If it was a man, nobody would even talk about that. So I think this conversation gets tricky, because the fact is we need to bring awareness to it. We need to talk about it. But at the same time, she had a choice, and I think that's a really, really great thing. And let more women have more choices to do what they want in ways that affect our films. So I think it's great for her.
Absolutely.
I agree.
We are seeing women, which I think could be written up about. Evita, very famous musical about a woman. We have Margaret Thatcher, the woman and head of Germany. But we're going to have Hillary Clinton. And I think she would be, what do you think about someone doing something about her?
I think that's in the works.
It's in the works?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
it is?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Who's doing it?
I can't remember the filmmaker's name. I think it was on the blacklist, though. I've read.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's called.
Who's that? James. Oh, James,
Is it
really?
James?
All right, I
No
think we have
kidding.
time for one more question. And then we'll, okay, maybe, all right, 2 more questions. I'm a sucker. Okay.
They can go. Do I have the mic? I'm the one.
Yes.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Elan Jackson. I'm a student here in Orlando in digital media. I'm also new to my local WIFT board. I was glad to hear that the advice was to jump right in if it's something you're interested in, because that can often be, the hardest first step. And to go along with that, for others in the room that may be still students, or maybe they're just saying, I want to start, getting into the industry, what sort of trade magazines or information, do you recommend as a first start to really start getting an understanding of what's going on in the film community, so that they can, be involved and abreast of things that are going on, pick up some technical language and things like that?
I mean, I love
IndieWire?
Filmmaker Magazine.
Yeah, Filmmaker, IndieWire are both fantastic.
And obviously Variety and Hollywood Reporter.
Yeah, I would also pay attention to Kickstarter and just do a local search on who's doing projects in your community and try and hook up with those people. Yeah, and I mean, your local women production group, Women in Film and Television, meeting people, networking that way, and form your own group too. So some of these publications might cover you guys too. But I guess going online and looking online, like
I think
Kickstarter
that's
and like things like that.
I think it's a great point. Use the resources that are there, but just start something. I mean, I love that you're embarking on this, and there's this amazing organization that we have here already, and then to continue to spread it out with the local community of female filmmakers, like what you guys did in New York, I think is wonderful. Our second question.
Hello, I am a local actress, and I want to just go ahead and thank you all for being so open and willing to share all of the information that you've shared with us so far. In the past year and a half, I have had the honor of getting consideration for, or actually booking roles that have been actually originally seen for, like they were originally envisioning men playing those parts. I do understand that it is a very local, independent realm that I have had these experiences in, but I'm wondering if such opportunities are considered, I guess, beyond the realm of local independent film.
I misunderstood that
I think we're a little confused about your question. I mean, first of all, I think it's awesome that you're being cast for different roles. I think that's excellent. I think Veronica Mars was originally supposed to be a man as well, so that's great. That means there's excellent acting, and they're looking to an interesting person, not necessarily the gender, so that's cool. And I think that your question, maybe you can repeat it, has to do with if that would relate beyond independent local projects?
Right. Like if, I guess something in a bigger market like that were likely to happen.
I mean, I think it does happen. Yeah, I mean, I think it has happened, and I think I think it can happen. But I'll let you guys speak to it. Like if somebody's originally thinking of a man for a role.
I am in the process of optioning something, and the script, the book was based on a male character, and it's already been switched in our treatment to a female. So that's just one example.
And what made you do that?
I just meeting with the writers. We just thought that it would be more interesting and sort of dynamic. We switched it up, and there were a lot of reasons, but we felt like the female character for some reason felt to us, and the writers are both men, so they proposed it, and we just thought it was really interesting. And so when we fleshed out the treatment, we just thought it worked really well. It was a novel that's not contemporary, but we were making the script contemporary, and we just made that choice. So.
And I think to speak to the story thing really quickly, like important to tell really, like what we were saying, strong women, have women, making the movies, but also, good stories, that they're really, really good stories. Those are the ones that people want to make and distribute and all of that. So all the men, and women that are here just working together to make really, good, authentic stories. So, all right. Well, thank you guys so much. Thank you, first of all.
Thank you.
Yay, thank you. And thank you to this just amazing audience that was just, had such incredible questions. And I'm so happy that we were able to have this conversation. And in closing, I just want to say that, we've talked about, I love the word perseverance. This is what was here. It's understanding that there's a difficult situation and moving through it. So now we understand what we're facing. And now, like you said, we throw the statistics out the window, and we are the exceptions, and we're all going to go out there and make extraordinary stories. So whether you're a man or a woman. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.